She heard he wasn't man enough. The Apache proved everyone wrong on their wedding night. He had grown up learning how to stay quiet. From the time he was young, the Apache man understood that silence could be a shield. In his village, people admired those who spoke loudly, laughed harder, and showed their strength in obvious ways. He was not like that. He listened more than he spoke. He watched before he acted. His strength lived inside him, calm and steady, but many people could not see it. As he grew older, the whispers began. Some said he was too soft. Others said he lacked confidence. A few went further and judged him in ways that were unfair and hurtful. They compared him to men who boasted and showed off. Because he did not do the same, they decided something must be wrong with him. He never defended himself. Not because he agreed with them, but because he believed that truth did not need shouting. Still, hearing those words year after year carved quiet lines into his heart. He carried his dignity like armor, even when it felt heavy. His family knew who he really was. They saw his discipline, his respect, and his deep sense of responsibility. He worked hard, helped without being asked, and treated elders and children with equal care. But outside his home, people preferred stories to reality. Then there was her. She lived in a nearby town, surrounded by relatives who talked too much and listened too little. When the idea of marriage first came up, his name was mentioned with polite smiles and careful pauses. At first, she knew nothing about him except that he came from a respected lineage and lived a simple life. But it did not take long for others to fill in the gaps. Friends pulled her aside. An aunt spoke in lowered tones. Even someone she barely knew felt comfortable offering advice she did not ask for. They told her stories shaped by rumors, not facts. They warned her in vague ways, using words that planted doubt but offered no proof. She tried to stay calm. She reminded herself that people often exaggerated. Yet when the same message comes from many mouths, it becomes hard to ignore. Little by little, uncertainty crept into her thoughts. She wondered what kind of man he really was. When she finally met him, the difference between reality and rumor confused her. He was polite, composed, and respectful. He spoke clearly, never interrupting, never trying to impress. He looked her in the eyes when she spoke, listening carefully as if her words mattered. That made her uncomfortable. She was used to men trying too hard. She had learned to expect confidence to look loud. His calm nature made her unsure how to read him. Was this strength, or was it the weakness everyone warned her about? After the meeting, the voices returned. Did he seem distant? Someone asked. Was he confident enough? Another questioned. Each comment pushed her further away from her own judgment. She started questioning her instincts. Maybe she was missing something. Maybe calmness hid something she could not see yet. The Apache man sensed the distance growing, even though no one said anything directly. He had lived with judgment long enough to recognize its shadow. He did not blame her. He understood how easily people could be influenced when surrounded by noise. Still, it hurt. He wanted to speak, to explain that his strength came from control, not force, that he believed respect mattered more than pride. But years of being misunderstood had taught him that words often failed where action succeeded. So he chose patience. As the marriage discussions moved forward, both families focused on tradition and appearance. Plans were made, dates were set, and expectations were built. Outwardly, everything looked right. Inwardly, both carried questions they were afraid to voice. She lay awake some nights, staring at the ceiling, wondering if she was making the right decision. Her thoughts circled around the same fears, fed by other people's opinions. She told herself that marriage was about adjustment, that love could grow with time. But fear has a quiet way of growing too. He, on the other hand, spent his nights reminding himself to trust the process. He believed that truth revealed itself slowly. He hoped that once she truly saw him, not through others' eyes but her own, things would change. The wedding day arrived like a carefully rehearsed performance. Music played, guests smiled, and blessings were spoken. She wore her nerves beneath practiced grace. He stood calm and steady, greeting everyone with respect. To outsiders, it looked like a perfect union. Inside, both felt the weight of expectation. She noticed how people watched him, some with curiosity, others with judgment. She wondered if she was expected to discover something that night that would confirm all the rumors. The thought made her uneasy. He noticed how she avoided meeting his eyes for too long. He did not push. He did not demand closeness. He believed that trust could not be rushed. When the celebrations ended and the noise faded, they entered a quiet space together for the first time. The silence felt heavy, filled with unspoken thoughts. She sat on the edge of the room, unsure of what to expect. Her heart beat fast, not with excitement but with uncertainty. He sensed her tension immediately. Instead of moving closer, he gave her space. He spoke gently, asking if she was comfortable, if she needed anything. His voice was calm, without pressure. That alone surprised her. It did not match the picture she had been given. She looked at him then, really looked at him. There was no fear in his eyes, no rush to prove anything. There was only patience and respect. Something inside her shifted, small but noticeable. For the first time, she wondered if the mistake had not been in him, but in the stories she had believed. That night did not become a dramatic moment. It became something quieter, something more important. It became the first crack in the wall built by rumors. As she lay awake later, listening to the quiet around her, she realized that maybe she had spent too much time listening to others and not enough time observing the man beside her. And for the first time since hearing his name spoken in whispers, she felt the smallest sense of curiosity instead of fear. She did not know it yet, but this was the beginning of everything changing. Morning arrived softly, without ceremony. The light crept into the room through thin curtains, touching the walls and resting quietly on the floor. She woke before him, her mind already busy. The night before had not brought answers, only questions shaped differently than before. She sat still for a moment, listening to his calm breathing, surprised by how steady it sounded. He woke soon after, careful not to disturb her. He greeted her politely, as if they were still learning how to exist in the same space. There was no awkwardness forced into words, no pressure to act like something they were not yet. That calmness stayed with her as the day began. Outside the room, the house was already awake. Family members moved around with practiced energy. There were greetings, smiles, and subtle glances sent in their direction. Everyone seemed curious, as if waiting to read the outcome of something they believed they already understood. She felt those looks. They weighed on her shoulders, reminding her of every warning she had heard before marriage. Each smile carried an unspoken question. Each pause felt like expectation. He noticed too. He had grown up under watchful eyes, under judgment that never spoke its name openly. He did not react. He poured tea for her, stepped aside so she could walk first, and answered relatives with respectful ease. His behavior was consistent, quiet, and firm. That consistency unsettled her. She had expected uncertainty, maybe even distance. Instead, she saw control and thoughtfulness. It did not fit the stories she had been told, and that mismatch kept her mind restless. As the days passed, they began settling into a shared routine. He woke early, as he always had, to handle responsibilities without complaint. She observed how he moved through the day, never rushed, never careless. He paid attention to details others ignored. He remembered small things like how she preferred her tea or when she seemed tired. Still, she kept her guard up. Years of listening to others had trained her to doubt her own observations. She told herself not to be fooled by surface behavior. She wondered if this calm was temporary, if something else would reveal itself with time. Her friends visited one afternoon. They spoke kindly, but their words were edged with curiosity. Questions came wrapped in casual tones. "How are you adjusting? Is everything okay?" They watched her closely, as if reading her expressions for confirmation. She answered carefully, choosing neutral words. After they left, she felt unsettled. Their visit reminded her that she was not alone in this marriage. Many opinions had followed her inside it. That evening, she finally asked him something real. Not directly, not boldly, but enough to open a door. She mentioned how people often misunderstood quiet people. She said it lightly, as if testing the ground beneath her words. He paused before answering. Then he spoke honestly, without defense. He told her he had always been that way, that he believed strength was about self-control and responsibility. He said he understood why people judged him, and that he had made peace with it long ago. There was no bitterness in his voice. That unsettled her even more than anger would have. She had expected resentment. Instead, she found acceptance. She began noticing how safe she felt around him, not in a dramatic way but in small moments. He never raised his voice. He never dismissed her thoughts. When disagreements appeared, he listened first. That kind of presence felt unfamiliar. At night, she lay awake again, but this time her thoughts had changed. Fear had softened into confusion, doubt mixed with curiosity. She began questioning the voices that had guided her choices. Why had they been so certain? Why had they spoken as if they knew him better than he knew himself? She replayed their warnings and realized how little evidence they had offered. Meanwhile, he continued as he always had. He did not try to win her over. He did not try to prove anything. He believed that trust could not be demanded. It had to grow on its own. One evening, she watched him help an elder family member without being asked. He listened patiently, even when the conversation repeated itself. He showed care without seeking praise. That moment stayed with her. She realized then that strength did not always announce itself. Sometimes it showed up quietly, consistently, day after day. Still, the pressure from outside did not stop. Messages came. Calls followed. Subtle hints appeared in conversations. People wanted reassurance that their concerns had been valid. She felt pulled between loyalty to her community and honesty with herself. That tension made her restless. One night, unable to sleep, she sat near the window, lost in thought. He noticed and joined her, not asking questions right away. He sat beside her, leaving enough space for comfort. Eventually, she spoke. She admitted that she had been afraid. She confessed that others had filled her mind with doubts before she ever met him properly. Her voice shook, not from fear, but from relief at finally being honest. He listened without interruption. When she finished, he did not react with hurt or anger. He thanked her for telling him. He said he understood how powerful words could be when repeated often. He told her he did not blame her. That moment changed something between them. For the first time, she felt like she was meeting him without interference, without noise, without judgment passed down by others. The days that followed felt lighter. She still had questions, still carried uncertainty, but it no longer controlled her. She began trusting her own experiences more than borrowed opinions. She noticed how people's expressions changed when they saw them together. Some looked surprised, others looked thoughtful. A few looked uncertain, as if their expectations were being challenged. She realized then that she was not the only one learning. He had spent his life being underestimated. She was beginning to understand how lonely that must have been. That realization brought a quiet sense of responsibility, to see him clearly, to judge him fairly. By the end of that week, something had shifted inside her. The marriage no longer felt like a question mark shaped by rumors. It felt like a story still being written, one she was finally willing to read for herself. And though she did not say it aloud yet, she knew one thing for certain. The truth about him was far more complex and far more real than anything she had been told. Time moved forward quietly, like water finding its own path. By now, the house no longer felt unfamiliar to her. The walls, the sounds, even the daily routines had begun to settle into something close to normal. Yet inside her, change was still happening. It was slow, steady, and deeply personal. She started noticing things she had once overlooked. The way he paused before making decisions, always thinking about consequences. The way he noticed moods without being told. The way he respected space, never forcing closeness, never assuming anything was owed to him. These details did not appear suddenly. They revealed themselves in ordinary moments, during meals, in shared silence, in the way he handled problems without panic. One afternoon, a small disagreement arose. It was nothing serious, just a difference in opinion about a family matter. In the past, she had seen such moments turn tense quickly. Voices rose, pride took control, and understanding disappeared. She prepared herself for that familiar pattern, but it never came. He listened first. He asked questions, not to challenge her, but to understand her view. When he spoke, his tone remained steady. He did not try to win. He tried to find balance. That moment stayed with her long after the conversation ended. She realized then how rare it was to feel heard without having to fight for attention. That realization made her reflect on her past experiences and the expectations she had carried into this marriage. Slowly, she began letting go of her guard. Not all at once, not without hesitation, but enough to allow honesty to breathe between them. She started sharing small parts of herself, her worries, her dreams, her frustrations. Each time he received them with care. He never dismissed her fears. That alone changed how she saw him. Outside the house, however, the world remained the same. People still talked. Assumptions still followed them. Some relatives watched closely, waiting for signs that matched their beliefs. She could feel it during gatherings, in the way conversations paused when she entered the room. At first, those looks unsettled her. But now, instead of feeding her doubts, they made her more aware of how unfair judgment could be. She began to see him through her own eyes, not borrowed ones. One evening, while they were walking together, she asked him about his past, not about rumors, but about his life. His childhood, his experiences. He hesitated briefly, then spoke. He shared stories of growing up feeling different, of learning early that he would never fit the image people admired. He spoke about choosing patience over anger, control over reaction. He admitted that there were times when being misunderstood hurt deeply, but he had learned to accept himself. Listening to him, she felt something shift inside her. This was not weakness. This was resilience shaped by experience. She realized that many people never develop such strength because they had never been tested in silence. As weeks passed, trust began forming naturally, not through grand gestures but through consistency. Through knowing that his behavior today would match his behavior tomorrow. That sense of reliability brought her a peace she had not expected. She stopped questioning every action. She stopped waiting for a flaw to appear. Instead, she started appreciating what was already there. One night, while sitting together after a long day, she found herself smiling without realizing it. The smile came from comfort, not effort. That moment surprised her. She wondered when exactly her fear had turned into ease. Perhaps it had happened slowly, quietly, the way true understanding often does. He noticed the change too. He saw how her posture relaxed, how her words came more freely, how her eyes no longer searched his face for confirmation of doubt. He did not comment on it. He simply allowed it to be. He had learned long ago that forcing trust only pushed it away. At a family gathering later that month, something unexpected happened. Someone made a careless remark, one shaped by old assumptions. It was not cruel, but it carried the weight of judgment. Before she could stop herself, she responded. Not angrily, not defensively, but firmly. She spoke about what she had seen, what she had experienced. She spoke about character, about respect, about how easily people misunderstood quiet strength. The room fell silent. She realized then that she was no longer defending him because she felt obligated. She was speaking because she believed in what she was saying. He stood beside her, calm as always. That moment marked a turning point. From that day on, she stopped explaining herself to everyone. She no longer felt the need to justify her marriage or her choices. What mattered was what she lived daily, not what others assumed. Their bond deepened naturally after that. They shared laughter, small routines, simple joys. They learned each other's rhythms, strengths, and limits. There was no rush to define what they were becoming. They were growing into it together. One quiet night, as they talked about the future, she realized something important. She was no longer afraid of disappointment. She trusted him, not because he had proven something dramatic, but because he had shown up consistently, honestly, and without pretense. She understood now that true strength often came without noise. It lived in patience, in responsibility, in the ability to stay steady when misunderstood. As she looked at him, she felt gratitude, not just for who he was, but for the lesson he had taught her without trying. That people are often wrong, that rumors say more about those who spread them than those they target, and that sometimes the quietest presence carries the strongest truth. She did not know what challenges the future might bring. No life was free of them. But for the first time, she felt confident facing them, not alone, not uncertain, but alongside someone whose strength she had learned to recognize. And that realization felt more powerful than any rumor ever could. Life did not suddenly become perfect after understanding grew between them. Instead, it became more real. As weeks turned into months, responsibilities increased. Expectations from family, community duties, and daily pressures slowly found their way into their lives. This was where many relationships began to struggle, not because of lack of feeling, but because of weight. She noticed it first. Small comments from relatives returned, not as direct judgments, but as reminders of old beliefs. Someone would mention how a husband should act. Someone else would speak about traditions in a way that quietly questioned him. These words were not loud, but they were sharp enough to leave marks. She watched him closely during these moments. He never reacted in haste. He never tried to silence anyone or prove them wrong. He responded with calm respect or chose silence when words would not help. At first, this confused her. She wondered if silence meant acceptance of disrespect. One evening, after returning from a gathering, she finally asked him, "Doesn't it bother you?" she said gently. "The way people still talk." He looked at her for a long moment before answering. "Of course it does," he said honestly. "But I learned a long time ago that reacting to every voice would leave me empty. Some opinions are not meant to be carried." His words stayed with her. She realized then that his calm was not weakness. It was a choice, a hard-earned one. Still, she struggled. She was not used to letting things pass. Her instinct was to correct, to explain, to defend. Sometimes that urge created tension between them. She wanted him to fight the world. He wanted to build peace within their home. They faced their first real challenge during this time. A family decision brought pressure from all sides. Everyone had advice. Everyone believed they knew what was best. The noise grew loud, and for the first time she felt overwhelmed. One night, frustration spilled over. She spoke faster than usual, her words filled with stress and confusion. She questioned whether his way of handling things would always leave them misunderstood. Her voice did not rise, but emotion filled the room. He listened quietly. When she finished, he did not retreat. He did not shut down. He acknowledged her feelings and admitted that balance was needed, that silence alone could not solve everything. That conversation mattered. They did not argue to win. They spoke to understand. They agreed that strength could take many forms, and sometimes it meant standing firm together. Other times, it meant letting go. That mutual understanding brought them closer than agreement ever could. Slowly, she began to see how much effort he put into carrying responsibility. He planned carefully. He thought ahead. He protected their peace even when it meant carrying stress alone. She noticed tiredness in his eyes on some days, a quiet fatigue he never complained about. That realization changed how she saw him again. She began supporting him more openly. She stood beside him in conversations. She learned when to speak and when to stay silent, not out of fear but out of wisdom. People noticed. Some became quieter, some became thoughtful. A few remained unchanged, but their opinions no longer held power over her. At home, warmth grew. They developed small habits that brought comfort, shared meals, evening walks, moments of laughter over simple things. These moments mattered more than grand gestures. They reminded her that peace was built daily, not announced once. One afternoon, while organizing old belongings, she found notes he had written long ago. Thoughts about responsibility, about becoming better, about patience. They were never meant to be seen. Reading them moved her deeply. She understood how long he had been shaping himself, quietly preparing to be someone dependable, even when no one believed in him. The realization filled her with respect that went beyond affection. That night, she thanked him. Not for a single act, but for who he was. He looked surprised, almost unsure how to respond. Praise was something he was not used to receiving, but she saw how much it meant to him. From that moment on, their connection strengthened further. Challenges did not disappear. Disagreements still happened, outside voices still existed, but now they faced everything as a unit. She trusted his judgment, he valued her voice. Together they found balance. One day, while sitting quietly, she thought about how much had changed since the beginning. How fear had once guided her thoughts, how rumors had shaped her expectations, how close she had come to misunderstanding someone so deeply. She felt grateful that life had given her time to see the truth. He, too, reflected. For the first time in his life, he felt truly seen, not judged, not measured against others, but accepted as he was. That acceptance healed wounds he had never spoken about. They did not speak these thoughts aloud often. They did not need to. Their actions said enough. As they moved forward, she knew that the world might never fully change its views. But she also knew that she no longer needed the world's approval. What they had built together was real, and real things did not need constant defense. This stage of their life taught her something important. That love was not about proving others wrong, but about choosing each other again and again, especially when it was difficult. She understood now that the quiet strength she once doubted was the very thing holding everything together. And that understanding prepared her for the final truth she would soon embrace, one that would fully redefine what she believed about strength, partnership, and trust. The change did not come in a single moment. It arrived slowly, like dawn after a long night. By this time, she no longer woke with doubt sitting heavy in her chest. Mornings felt calmer. The house felt lived in, not just occupied. Their conversations flowed more easily, without careful pauses or hidden fears. She realized one day that she had stopped thinking about rumors completely. They no longer followed her into the room. They no longer whispered in her thoughts. What once felt loud and powerful now felt distant and small. What mattered was what she lived every day. He remained the same man he had always been, steady, thoughtful, consistent. But now she understood him fully. She saw the depth behind his silence, the intention behind his calm, the strength behind his restraint. That understanding changed how she spoke about him. When people asked questions, she answered honestly, without trying to impress or defend. Her calm confidence surprised many. Some listened, some did not, but she no longer felt responsible for changing their minds. Her peace did not depend on their approval. One evening they sat together after a long day. The house was quiet, filled with a comfortable stillness. She watched him carefully, noticing the familiar patterns in his movements, the way he relaxed when the day was done. She thought about how different her life felt compared to the beginning. Back then, she had entered marriage carrying fear shaped by other people's voices. Now she carried trust shaped by lived experience. That difference mattered. She spoke softly, telling him how grateful she was, not just for what he did, but for how he had never tried to become someone else to please the world. She admitted how close she had come to misunderstanding him and how thankful she was that time had shown her the truth. He listened, as he always did. When he spoke, his words were simple but honest. He told her that being seen by her had changed him too. That for the first time he felt understood without having to explain himself. That moment stayed with both of them. From then on, their bond felt complete, not perfect, but whole. They faced challenges together. Decisions came, responsibilities grew, and life tested them in ordinary ways. But each challenge strengthened what they had built rather than weakening it. She learned to trust his judgment even when others questioned it. He learned to lean on her voice when balance was needed. They had become partners in the truest sense. At a family gathering months later, something unexpected happened. Someone who had once spoken carelessly approached her. Their tone was different now, less certain, more thoughtful. They admitted quietly that they might have been wrong. She did not feel pride. She felt relief, not because she needed validation, but because truth had finally reached someone else. She realized then that change did not require confrontation. Sometimes it only required consistency and time. As she watched him interact with others, calm, respectful, steady, she understood how powerful quiet example could be. People began to see him differently, not all at once, not everyone, but enough. And even those who did not change no longer mattered. One night, as she lay awake, she thought about the meaning of strength. She realized how deeply her understanding had shifted. Strength was not about noise or dominance. It was not about proving anything to anyone. It was about responsibility, patience, and the courage to remain true to oneself even when misunderstood. He had lived that truth long before she recognized it. She felt humbled by that realization. In time, she noticed something else. She herself had changed. She was more patient, more observant, less quick to judge. Being beside him had taught her to listen beyond words and to value actions over appearances. Their marriage had shaped them both. One quiet afternoon, they walked together, speaking about the future. There were no grand promises, only shared hopes, stability, growth, peace. She felt no fear imagining what lay ahead. Whatever challenges came, she knew they would face them with the same calm strength that had brought them this far. Looking back, she understood how dangerous assumptions could be, how easily people accepted stories without knowing the person behind them, how close she had come to letting others define her life. That realization stayed with her as a lesson she would never forget. If someone asked her now what she had learned, she would say this: true strength does not announce itself. It does not seek approval. It stands quietly, doing what is right, even when no one is watching. He had proven nothing in a single night. He had proven everything over time. And in doing so, he had changed not just her understanding of him, but her understanding of life, love, and partnership. As their story continued, it no longer felt like something shaped by rumors or expectations. It felt like something real. And that, she knew, was more than enough.